The desert wind carried the scent of danger as Lieutenant Sarah Chen crouched behind the crumbling wall of an abandoned compound in Afghanistan. Her medical kit weighed heavy on her shoulders, but not as heavy as the secrets she carried in her heart. The SEAL team she was assigned to had no idea who she really was before she became their medic. "Doc, we need you up here now," shouted Sergeant Mike Torres, his voice cutting through the sound of distant gunfire. Sarah's hands moved with practiced precision as she checked her supplies one final time before sprinting toward the wounded soldier. The team had been on a routine patrol when they walked into an ambush. Now, 3 of the 8-man unit were down, and Sarah was the only thing standing between them and death. As she reached the first casualty, Petty Officer James Rodriguez, she could see the fear in his eyes. Blood was seeping through his tactical vest, and his breathing was shallow. "Stay with me, Rodriguez," Sarah whispered, as she cut away his gear to assess the wound. "You're going to be fine." The other SEALs formed a protective circle around her as she worked. These men had seen combat in the worst places on Earth, but they always felt safer when Doc Chen was with them. She had saved more lives than any medic they had ever worked with, and her calm presence under fire was legendary throughout the unit. What they didn't know was that Sarah's steady hands had been trained not just in military medicine, but in the underground fighting rings of Los Angeles. Before she enlisted, before she became the woman who saved lives, she had been someone very different, someone who took lives with those same precise hands. As Sarah worked to stop Rodriguez's bleeding, memories flashed through her mind like lightning. She remembered the smell of sweat and blood in dimly lit warehouses, the roar of crowds betting on death, and the feeling of her opponent's pulse slowing under her grip. Those were the hands that now fought to save lives, instead of ending them. "Doc, how's he looking?" asked Chief Petty Officer David Kim, the team leader. His voice was steady, but Sarah could hear the concern underneath. These men trusted her completely, and that trust weighed on her more than any medical equipment ever could. "He'll make it," Sarah replied, applying pressure to the wound while setting up an IV line. "The bullet missed anything vital, but I need to get him stabilized before we move." As she worked, her mind drifted to the letter hidden in her personal belongings back at base. It had arrived 3 days ago. Addressed to her real name, the name she had abandoned when she fled Los Angeles 5 years earlier. Someone from her past had found her, and they wanted to meet. The letter was simple but terrifying. "We know where you are, Viper. Time to come home. Time to come home." Viper. That's what they called her in the underground fighting world. Sarah Chen, the quiet medic who saved Navy SEALs, had once been Viper, the deadliest female fighter in the illegal circuit. She had been undefeated in 37 matches, each one more brutal than the last. Her signature move was a chokehold so precise that opponents would lose consciousness in seconds, and if she held it just a moment longer. "We've got movement on the ridge," reported Corporal Danny Walsh from his position. "Looks like our friends are coming back for round 2. Sarah finished bandaging Rodriguez and moved to the second casualty, Seaman Marcus Johnson. His leg was badly damaged by shrapnel, and bone was visible through the torn flesh. As she began cleaning the wound, her hands moved with the same deadly precision that had once broken arms and crushed windpipes in the fighting pits. The irony wasn't lost on her. The same techniques that made her a killer had made her an exceptional medic. The pressure points she used to knock out opponents were the same ones she used to stop bleeding. The anatomical knowledge that helped her find the most devastating attacks now helped her find the fastest way to heal. "Doc, you're incredible," Johnson gasped through gritted teeth as Sarah worked on his leg. "I don't know how you do it." If only he knew, Sarah thought. If only any of them knew that the gentle hands now saving his life had once killed 3 men in a single night during the most brutal tournament she had ever entered. That night had been her last fight. The night that finally made her realize what she had become. She remembered Miguel Santos, her final opponent. He was bigger, stronger, and had a reputation for never showing mercy. The crowd was screaming for blood, and the prize money was more than Sarah had ever seen. But something went wrong. Miguel didn't tap out when she applied her chokehold. He kept fighting, kept struggling, even as consciousness faded from his eyes. Sarah had held on too long. By the time the referee pulled her off, Miguel was already gone. The crowd erupted in cheers, thinking it was all part of the show, but Sarah knew the truth. She had crossed a line she could never uncross. "Doc, we need to move now." Chief Kim's voice snapped her back to the present. "Helicopters are inbound, but we need to get to the LZ." Sarah quickly finished stabilizing Johnson and moved to the third casualty, Petty Officer Alex Thompson. He had taken a bullet to the shoulder, but the wound was clean. As she bandaged him up, Thompson grabbed her wrist with his good hand. "Thank you," he whispered. "My wife is having our first baby next month. I need to get home to them." The words hit Sarah like a physical blow. Thompson was the same age Miguel Santos had been. He had the same determined eyes, the same fighter's grip. For a moment, Sarah saw Miguel's face staring back at her, asking why she hadn't let go. "You're going home," Sarah promised, finishing the bandage. "All of you are going home." As the team prepared to move toward the evacuation point, Sarah shouldered her medical kit and fell in behind them. The weight of her equipment was nothing compared to the weight of her secrets. These men trusted her with their lives, but they had no idea they were putting their faith in someone who had once been a killer. The sound of approaching helicopters grew louder, and Sarah allowed herself a moment of hope. Maybe she could keep running from her past. Maybe the letter was just someone trying to scare her. Maybe she could continue being Doc Chen, the medic who saved lives, instead of Viper, the fighter who ended them. But deep in her heart, she knew the truth. The past never stayed buried forever, and the person who had found her wouldn't give up easily. Someone knew who she really was, and they were coming for her. The question wasn't if her secret would be revealed, but when, and what would happen to her and the team she had grown to love when that moment arrived. As they reached the landing zone and the rescue helicopters touched down, Sarah helped load the wounded SEALs aboard. Each man thanked her, their eyes filled with gratitude and respect. They saw her as their guardian angel, the person who brought them back from the edge of death. None of them could imagine that their angel had once been someone else's demon. But Sarah knew that soon, very soon, they might have to face that terrible truth. And when they did, everything would change forever. 2 days after the ambush, Sarah sat in the medical tent reviewing patient charts when Chief Kim approached her workstation. The rescued SEALs were recovering well, but she could see something different in Kim's expression. His usual confident demeanor seemed strained, and he kept glancing around, as if checking for eavesdroppers. "Doc, we need to talk," Kim said quietly. "Private conversation." Sarah's blood ran cold. The letter. Someone had told him about the letter. She followed Kim outside the tent to a quiet area behind the supply containers. The base was busy with the usual activity, but this corner offered some privacy from curious ears. "3 days ago, someone came asking about you," Kim began, his voice low and serious. "A civilian contractor said he was doing background verification for some medical certification renewal. Asked a lot of specific questions about your previous assignments, your history before joining the unit." Sarah's hands clenched at her sides. She forced herself to remain calm, but her heart was racing. "What kind of questions?" "Strange ones. Wanted to know if you had any scars or injuries that might indicate prior combat experience outside the military. Asked if you ever showed unusual familiarity with trauma wounds, like you might have seen them before. Even wanted to know if you ever talked about Los Angeles." The mention of Los Angeles hit Sarah like a punch to the gut. Whoever was looking for her was getting closer, and now they were involving her team. The very people she was trying to protect were being dragged into her past. "Chief, I need to tell you something," Sarah started, but Kim held up his hand. "Before you say anything, Doc, I want you to know something. This team trusts you completely. Whatever happened before you joined us, whatever you might be running from, it doesn't change the fact that you've saved more lives than any medic we've ever worked with." Kim paused, studying her face carefully. "But if there's something that could put the team in danger, I need to know about it." Sarah looked into the eyes of the man who had become like a father to the entire unit. Chief Kim had led them through impossible missions and brought everyone home alive more times than anyone could count. He deserved the truth, but giving it to him would destroy everything she had built. I wasn't always a medic, Sarah said slowly. Before I enlisted, I lived in Los Angeles. I was involved in some things that I'm not proud of. What kind of things? Sarah took a deep breath. The words felt like poison in her mouth, but they had to come out. Underground fighting. Illegal tournaments where people bet on matches that sometimes went too far. Kim's expression didn't change, but Sarah could see him processing the information. You were a fighter? I was good at it. Too good. Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. I hurt people, Chief. I hurt them badly. And the last fight someone died. The silence stretched between them for what felt like hours. Sarah watched Kim's face, waiting for the disgust, the betrayal, the order to pack her bags and leave the unit forever. Instead, she saw something she didn't expect. Understanding. Were you charged with anything? Kim asked. No. It was ruled an accident during a sanctioned match. The underground scene had enough lawyers and paid-off officials to make problems disappear. But I knew what really happened. I knew I had held on too long, and I ran. Kim nodded slowly. And now someone from that world has found you. I got a letter 3 days ago. Someone calling himself Marcus Rivera wants to meet. Says he has a proposition that I can't refuse. Sarah pulled the crumpled letter from her pocket and handed it to Kim. As Kim read the letter, Sarah watched the base around them continue its normal routine. Soldiers moved between buildings. Helicopters took off and landed. And somewhere in the medical tent, the SEALs she had saved were healing. This was her world now, her real life. But the shadows of her past were threatening to destroy it all. Rivera, Kim muttered, finishing the letter. That name sounds familiar. He was quiet for a moment, then looked up sharply. Marcus Rivera used to run security for some of the high-stakes underground circuits. Word was he had connections to organized crime, used the fighting scene to launder money and recruit muscle. Sarah's stomach dropped. How do you know that? Well, because I grew up in East LA, Doc. Before I joined the Navy, I knew guys who got involved in that world. Most of them ended up dead or in prison. Kim folded the letter carefully. If Rivera is looking for you, it's not for a reunion. What do you think he wants? My guess? He needs someone with your particular skills for something big, someone who can kill efficiently and has medical training to cover their tracks or keep people alive for interrogation. Kim's voice was grim. The fact that he found you here, on a classified base, means he has serious resources. Sarah felt the walls of her new life closing in around her. Chief, I need you to know that I never wanted any of this to touch the team. I joined the military to get away from that world, to do something good with the skills I learned in a bad place. I believe you, Doc, but we need to figure out how to handle this before it becomes a threat to the entire unit. Before Sarah could respond, Corporal Walsh came running around the corner of the supply containers. His face was flushed, and he was breathing hard. Chief, Doc, you need to see this, Walsh panted. Someone left a package for Doc at the main gate. Security cleared it, but the contents are strange. The three of them walked quickly to the command tent where the package sat on a table. It was a simple cardboard box with Sarah's name written in block letters. Inside was a collection of photographs and newspaper clippings. Sarah's blood turned to ice as she looked at the images. They were photos from her fighting days. Pictures of her in the ring, standing over defeated opponents, raising her hands in victory while crowds cheered. The newspaper clippings were from local LA papers, reporting on underground fighting tournaments and the mysterious death of Miguel Santos. At the bottom of the box was a single photo that made Sarah's knees weak. It showed her team during yesterday's mission, taken with a long-range camera. Each member of the SEAL unit was circled in red ink, and their names were written below their faces. He knows about the team, Sarah whispered. Rivera knows about all of you. Kim picked up the photo and studied it carefully. This was taken from the ridge where we spotted movement during the firefight. Someone was watching the entire time. Chief, what does this mean? Walsh asked. Looking between Kim and Sarah with growing concern, Kim set down the photo and looked directly at Sarah. It means we're all targets now. Whatever Rivera wants with you, he's willing to use us as leverage to get it. Sarah sank into a nearby chair, the weight of her guilt crushing down on her. The men she had sworn to protect were now in danger because of her past. The skills that made her such an effective medic had come from a world of violence, and now that world was threatening the only family she had ever known. There's more, Walsh said quietly, pulling out a folded piece of paper from the bottom of the box. There was this note. Sarah unfolded the paper with trembling hands. The message was brief but terrifying. You have 48 hours to meet me at the old warehouse district in Kandahar City. Come alone, or your SEAL friends will discover just how dangerous their angel really is. Bring your medical kit. You're going to need it. Kim read the note over Sarah's shoulder. Kandahar is 2 hours by helicopter. If we leave now, we could have a full team in position to back you up. No, Sarah said firmly. If he sees any backup, he'll expose everything. The team will learn the truth about who I really am, and your careers will be destroyed for harboring someone with my background. Doc, we don't abandon our own, Walsh said. Whatever you did before, you're one of us now. Sarah looked at these two men who had become her brothers, who trusted her despite knowing so little about her past. They were willing to risk everything to help her, just as she had risked everything to save their lives countless times. I have to go alone, Sarah said. It's the only way to keep the team safe. Rivera wants me for something specific, and if I can give him what he wants, maybe he'll leave all of you out of it. Absolutely not, Kim said. We're not letting you walk into a trap. Chief, you don't understand. In my world, in the fighting circuit, there were rules. Unspoken codes that even the worst people followed. If Rivera wanted me dead, I'd already be dead. He needs me alive for something, which means I have leverage. Sarah stood up and walked to the tent entrance, looking out at the base that had become her home. I spent 5 years running from what I was, trying to become someone better. Maybe it's time to stop running and face the truth about who I used to be. Kim and Walsh exchanged a look, and Sarah could see them having an entire conversation without words. These men had trained together, fought together, and learned to communicate in the silent language of soldiers who trusted each other completely. If you're going to do this, Kim said finally, you're not going in blind. Walsh, get me everything we have on Marcus Rivera and any criminal organizations operating in the Kandahar area. I want to know exactly who we're dealing with. Roger that, Chief, Walsh replied, already moving toward the intelligence tent. Kim turned back to Sarah. And you're going to tell me everything about your fighting days. If we're going to keep you alive and protect the team, I need to understand exactly what Rivera might want from you. Sarah nodded, knowing that the next few hours would either save her new life or destroy it completely. The SEAL team that had become her family was about to learn the truth about their medic, and she could only hope that the bonds forged in combat would be strong enough to survive the revelation of who she really was. 18 hours later, Sarah stood at the edge of the Kandahar warehouse district as the sun began to set behind the mountains. Her medical kit was strapped to her back, and hidden beneath her uniform were 2 concealed knives. Old habits from her fighting days that Chief Kim had insisted she carry. The warehouse Rivera had specified was a crumbling concrete structure that had been abandoned since the Soviet occupation. Sarah could see multiple vantage points where snipers could be positioned, and the maze of broken buildings provided dozens of escape routes. Rivera had chosen his location well. As she approached the main entrance, Sarah's mind flashed back to the conversation she had with the team 6 hours earlier. Chief Kim had gathered all the SEALs in the briefing tent and asked Sarah to tell them the truth about her past. She had expected anger, disgust, maybe even fear. Instead, she found something she never anticipated: acceptance. So, our doc used to be a badass fighter, Rodriguez had said after hearing the whole story. That explains why you never flinch when we're under fire, and why you can patch us up so fast, Johnson added. You know exactly how bodies work, because you used to break them. Thompson, the SEAL whose wife was expecting their first child, had been the most direct. Doc, you saved my life. You're the reason I'm going home to meet my son. I don't care what you did before you became our medic. You're family now." The unanimous support of the team had been overwhelming, but it also raised the stakes of her current mission. These men were counting on her to come back alive, and she couldn't let them down. Sarah pushed open the heavy metal door of the warehouse and stepped into the dim interior. The space was vast and empty, except for a few rusted pieces of machinery and piles of debris. In the center of the warehouse, under a shaft of fading sunlight, stood a man in an expensive suit that looked completely out of place in the war-torn surroundings. Marcus Rivera was smaller than Sarah had expected, but she could see the predatory intelligence in his eyes and the way he carried himself with the confidence of someone accustomed to power. 2 armed guards flanked him, their weapons visible but not directly threatening. "Viper," Rivera said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "You look different in military fatigues, almost respectable." "My name is Sarah Chen," she replied, stopping about 10 feet away from him. "Viper doesn't exist anymore," Rivera laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Oh, but she does. She exists in every precise movement of your hands, every calculated decision you make under pressure. You can change your clothes and your name, but you can't change what you are." "What do you want, Rivera?" "Straight to business. I always liked that about you." Rivera began walking slowly around Sarah, like a predator circling prey. "I have a problem that requires someone with your unique combination of skills, medical training, and the ability to kill efficiently when necessary. I'm not a killer anymore." "No?" "Tell that to the 3 insurgents you eliminated during your unit's last mission." "Oh yes. I know about that too. The official report says they died from explosive devices, but my sources tell a different story. They say someone with medical knowledge used pressure points to incapacitate them before finishing them with their own weapons." Sarah's blood ran cold. During the mission, she had been separated from the team and encountered 3 enemy combatants. Her military training had taken over, but the techniques she used were definitely informed by her fighting background. She had hoped no one would notice the specific nature of their injuries. "Those men were trying to kill my teammates," Sarah said. "I did what was necessary to protect them." "Exactly. You did what was necessary, using the skills that made you the most feared fighter in Los Angeles. That's why I need you." Rivera stopped in front of her and pulled out a tablet computer. The screen showed a floor plan of a heavily fortified compound. "6 months ago, my organization was betrayed by someone we trusted. This person stole something very valuable from us and has been hiding in a compound outside Kabul under the protection of a rival group. I'm not interested in your criminal problems, but you will be interested in this." Rivera swiped to a new image on the tablet. It showed a young girl, maybe 8 years old, sitting in what looked like a prison cell. "My former associate didn't just steal money and drugs. He took my daughter." Sarah stared at the image, her medical training automatically noting signs of malnourishment and fear in the child's posture. "Your daughter?" "Elena. She was visiting her grandmother in Los Angeles when my associate decided to use her as insurance against retaliation. For 6 months, I've been trying to find her through normal channels. But the compound where she's being held is too well defended for a direct assault and too well connected for legal intervention." Rivera put the tablet away and looked directly into Sarah's eyes. "I need someone who can get inside as a medic, someone the guards will trust to treat their wounded, someone who can eliminate the key targets quietly while providing medical cover for the operation, someone who can get close enough to my daughter to keep her safe during the extraction. Why should I believe any of this? How do I know this isn't just another criminal operation?" Rivera reached into his jacket and pulled out a phone. He dialed a number and put it on speaker. After a few rings, a small voice answered. "Papa?" Sarah's heart clenched at the sound. The voice was young, frightened, and speaking in accented English mixed with Spanish. "Elena, mi amor. How are you feeling today?" "I'm scared, Papa. When are you coming to get me?" "The man with the scar says you don't want me anymore." "That man is lying, little one. Papa is coming for you very soon. I promise. I promise." The call ended, and Rivera put the phone away. Sarah could see genuine pain in his eyes for the first time since their conversation began. "Elena is everything to me," Rivera said quietly. "Her mother died when she was 3, and she's all I have left of that life. I may be a criminal, but I'm also a father." Sarah studied Rivera carefully. Her medical training had taught her to read people quickly and accurately, and everything about his demeanor suggested he was telling the truth about his daughter. But that didn't change the fundamental problem with his request. "Even if I believe you about Elena, what you're asking me to do would make me a murderer again. I came here to save lives, not end them. You would be saving a life, the most important life in my world. And what about my team? You threatened them to get me here." Rivera nodded toward one of his guards, who produced another tablet. The screen showed live surveillance footage of Sarah's base, with clear views of her SEAL teammates going about their daily routines. "Your friends are safe as long as you cooperate. But if you refuse my offer, I'll make sure certain information reaches the wrong people. Information about a Navy medic who lied about her background and has been using military resources to hide from her criminal past." The threat was clear, and Sarah knew Rivera had the connections to make good on it. Her military career would be over. Her teammates would be investigated and possibly charged with harboring a fugitive, and she would end up in prison or worse. "How long do I have to decide?" "The mission is tomorrow night. Elena's captors are expecting a medical visit. We've arranged for several of their guards to be injured in a staged accident. You'll go in as a contracted medic, eliminate the 3 key targets, and extract my daughter during the confusion." Sarah closed her eyes and tried to think through her options. Every path seemed to lead to betraying someone she cared about. If she refused, her SEAL team would be destroyed. If she accepted, she would become a killer again and potentially start a war between rival criminal organizations. "There's another option," she said suddenly, opening her eyes. "I'm listening. What if we could get Elena out without killing anyone? What if there was a way to complete the mission without turning me back into Viper?" 2. Rivera looked skeptical. "The compound is too well defended. The only way in is through deception, and the only way out is through violence. This group? Maybe. Or maybe there's a third option that neither of us has considered." Sarah thought about her teammates, their unwavering loyalty, and their willingness to risk everything for family. "Give me 12 hours. I need to make some calls. You have 6 hours. After that, we proceed with the original plan, or your SEAL friends face the consequences." Sarah nodded and turned to leave, but Rivera's voice stopped her. "Viper, don't try anything clever. I have people watching your every move, and I know exactly how dangerous you can be when cornered. Stick to the plan. Get my daughter back, and everyone walks away alive." As Sarah left the warehouse, her mind was already working through a different kind of plan. Chief Kim had been right about one thing. She wasn't alone anymore. The SEAL team that had accepted her past might be willing to help her face it one more time. But first, she needed to figure out how to save an innocent child without sacrificing everything she had worked to become. The medic who saved lives and the fighter who ended them were about to become the same person one final time. 6 hours later, as Sarah prepared for what might be her last mission, she thought about the choice that had led her here. She had spent 5 years running from her past, only to discover that sometimes the only way forward was to embrace what you used to be, in service of who you wanted to become. The SEALs were ready. The plan was desperate but possible. And somewhere in a fortified compound, a little girl was waiting for someone to keep a promise her father had made. Sarah checked her medical kit one last time, secured her concealed weapons, and prepared to discover whether redemption was possible for someone like her. The mission would determine not just Elena Rivera's fate, but whether Sarah Chen could finally put Viper to rest forever.